Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Massive Valley Messianic Congregation Tuesday night Torah study. We are in Exodus 21. It is Mishpatim, judgments, right rulings. We'll wait a few minutes. I'm still finishing my dinner.
Shoftim is judges. Mishpatim. Shoftim is judges, and that one comes in Deuteronomy. Mishpatim is judgments.
Okay, we're in Exodus 21 through 23 or 24. Everybody's got Genesis or Exodus 21. Exodus 21. Well, let's pray. Father, I thank you for this day. Thank you, Father, for your blessings. Thank you, Father, for your word. And Lord, help us to learn from your study tonight. Lord, help us to learn from your Torah. Help us to apply your revelation tonight to our lives so we may grow closer to you, Lord, and serve you with all of our hearts. We give you thanks. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Right rulings and judgments. Okay, so now we've come out of Egypt and we are at the mountain. All right, verse 1 of chapter 21. These are the judgments or right rulings which you are to set before them. When you buy a Hebrew servant, he serves 6 years, and the seventh he goes out free for naught. Okay? Now, when we get into this slavery, it's a lot different than what happened in America, how we think of slavery, okay? It's not like slavery we think about today in the modern world. It was different because slaves had a whole lot more rights according to the Torah than how we think. So if he comes in by himself, he goes out by himself. Verse 3. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. All right?
He can stay if he wants to.
Yeah, he could stay if he wants to. So now you have to remember, too, with Shabbat, the slaves got Shabbat off also.
Yes, they did.
So it wasn't like the slavery we think about.
This Shabbat is Shekalim. Shabbat Shekalim. So the owner and the slave had to give a half a shekel because they're equal.
Yep.
No matter how much money you had.
Yeah.
Those demonic liberals.
And not
Yeah.
only Shabbat, but all
Festivals.
the festivals. So that was a
Right.
lot of time off they got.
Verse 4. If his master has given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and the children are her master's, and he goes out by himself. If the servant truly says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, let me not go out free, then his master shall bring him before Elohim, and shall bring him to the door or to the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Okay?
But you have to keep in mind, this is only slaves obtained from foreign people. Because if she is an Israelite, she gets to go free after 7 years, just like every other Israelite.
Right.
This is only a
Right.
slave that he's gotten through war or something from a foreign land, from foreign people. So the guy the slave who was given this wife would have known she was never going to be able to go free when he married her. So he would have known that when
Right.
he married her.
Verse 7. And when a man sells his daughter to be a female servant, she does not go out as the male servants do. Okay, so there's a difference between female and male servants here. If she is displeasing the eyes to her master, who has engaged her to himself, then he shall let her be ransomed. He shall have no authority to sell her to foreign people because of him deceiving her. Okay? So there can't be no deception involved. And if he has engaged her to his son, he is due to her as the rights of a daughter. Okay? So, the rights of a daughter. So she really wasn't a slave then. Verse 10. If he takes another wife, her food, her covering, her marriage rights are not to be diminished. So just because a guy has another wife, the first wife still gets the rights.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it seems like almost every place that it talks about selling a daughter, it seems like it's more like a wife. As to be a wife, it's sort of like reverse dowry, because usually for a dowry, the girl has stuff that comes with her, right? But this
Right.
is where they have to pay the father of the bride, so it's not really the same as a slave.
Verse 8. Or where am I at? I'm down lower than that, ain't I?
Yeah.
No.
Verse 11.
Right.
And if he does not do these three for her, then she shall go out for nothing or not without silver. He was okay, so
Mine says without debt.
without debt. Right.
Mine says she is going to be given her freedom without having to pay anything.
Yeah.
Right. She don't have to pay anything. Okay, so now we're going to jump right into some things here. He who strikes a man so that he dies shall certainly be put to death. But if he did not lie in wait, but Elohim delivered him into his hand, then I shall appoint for you a place where he is to flee. Okay, so this isn't intentional. But when a man acts presumptuous or with intent against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you are to take him even from my slaughter place to die. He who strikes his father or his mother shall certainly be put to death, and he who kidnaps a man and sells him, or if he found him in his hand, shall certainly be put to death. So kidnapping was as serious as murder. All right. One thing you have to understand, sometimes things with God seem harsh, but if you want true justice, you have to get it from God. Okay? Only true justice comes from God.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Up to this point, the only thing were the Ten Commandments, basically. Now we're starting to get into
Civil laws.
civil law, sideline activities.
Yes.
And from there, you end up with the 513.
600, yeah, 613, yeah.
613.
But it's like
Plus,
just going deeper into, it's like the 10 Commandments are the categories, and
Yeah,
these are
right.
like under,
the outlines.
Well,
kind of like that. Going into more detail and into case studies and stuff like that.
well, 10 Commandments tell you to be nice. This tells you how to be nice.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Verse 17.
It
And
tells
so,
you not to kill, and then it says exactly how to punish the person that kills, depending on how they killed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
now we're going to get into some,
Okay, so who's starting this here? Where are these coming from?
these are
It-
what the Lord is giving Moses.
He's given Moses on
Yeah.
the mountain, then Moses comes down and gives it to the people.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Verse 17.
Yeah, because remember, God told Moses to come up with Aaron
yeah.
Yeah.
back after the
Right.
right before the 10 Commandments is called them.
So, verse 17. And he who curses his father or his mother shall certainly be put to death. Does that seem harsh? He who curses, just curses his father and mother. Okay.
He wants us to honor our father
Right,
and mother.
right,
And be
exactly.
serious
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it.
Well, that's very important.
Right.
So you look in chapter 20, verse 21, it says, Then the people stood at a distance while Moses drew near to the thick cloud where God was.
Yeah.
So he went back up on the mountain after God spoke from the
Okay,
10 Commandments.
okay.
I'm just saying, some of these verses, people are going to think they're harsh, but they're not. It saves a whole lot of trouble down the road.
Yeah, how does a kid turn out who feels free to sass his mom and dad and curse them? How would that might turn out?
In the state pen? I don't know. That's how they turn out. I shouldn't laugh, but
That's why the old folks used to say, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out.
so
You gotta establish limits.
There has
there's
to be
boundaries.
respect.
There's
has
got to
to
be
respect.
respect,
Mhm.
Respect and
biblical teaching. And when men strive together and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist and he does not die but is confined to his bed or bedridden, if he rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he who struck him shall be innocent. He only pays for lost time and sees to it that he is completely healed. Okay? So he has to pay for lost work and to pay for his medical bills.
Yeah, that's forgetting.
All right? And when a male strikes his male or female servant with a rod so that he dies under his hand, he shall certainly be punished. One thing you have to learn when you go through these laws, okay, we cannot lean on our own understanding. God's given these laws for a reason. All right. Verse 21, but if he remains alive a day or two, he is not punished, for he is his property. And when men strive,
But I have something to tell about the Hebrew about that verse. Okay. First of all, the property is the word kesef, which means money. And so it can sound like that if he just takes 1 or 2 days to die, then the owner is not punished. But in the Hebrew it says, if in a day or days he stands, So it's like if he gets well,
Right.
not just if he dies in a day or two. And then there are many others where it's going to be further on down about if they injure them, what happens.
Mhm.
So we'll see more about that. I put it all together in here so I can study it.
Okay, verse 22. And when men strive, and they shall smite a pregnant woman, and her child comes out, yet there is no catastrophe or injury. It's catastrophe in Hebrew. He shall certainly be punished according as the woman's husband lays upon him, and he shall give through the judges. But if there is injury, then you shall give life for life. This is talking about when a pregnant woman is struck and she loses the baby,
Yes.
that person who struck her dies.
Yes.
So all these abortions, these doctors performing these abortions,
Mhm.
they deserve death.
Amen. Yeah.
That's what it's saying.
But in some translations, people use this to support abortion.
Mm.
Because in some, I'm trying to find that on some translations like mine, let's see. Pregnant woman, no, and there is a miscarriage and yet no further harm follows. The one responsible should be fined. Da, da, da. So it doesn't make it clear about the baby. What like a miscarriage means the baby dies, but that's not what it means. It says if there's injury, that means injury to the baby or the mother.
Right.
It doesn't just mean to the mother.
Right.
So you got to read it correctly. So if anything happens to the baby, if the baby doesn't live, then the baby's dead, and that person's going to be put to death, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the baby's considered a human being living
Yes.
Yes.
in the womb.
Yeah, exactly.
So they use the word
According to the Torah, yeah.
Yeah.
They use the word miscarriage here, but yours is translated, it said comes out. So it doesn't mean comes out dead. It means if the baby comes out alive and not hurt, then the guy will be okay. But the guy won't be put to death. He'll still be punished, right? The husband can still demand something of him, maybe.
So it's just like murder, okay? You got to understand, it's just like murder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right?
Just like
Eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. It's called equal weights and equal measures. God hates unequal weights and unequal measures. Okay, he hates that.
Yeah.
And so equality. So they want to talk about equality. What about the baby's rights?
Yes. Amen.
Okay. Burn for burn, wound for wound, lash for lash. Proper and equal compensation. That's what it means, eye for an eye and tooth for tooth. Okay. Equal compensation. Proper. All right. Doesn't mean who can hire the greatest lawyer, has the money to hire the best lawyers, wins. That's not the right rulings. Okay. Verse 26, and when a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he is to let them go free for the sake of his eye. So there is a responsibility of the master,
Yeah. See?
And if he knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he is to let him go for free the sake of his tooth. See, that's happened to me. No.
Is that while you were wrestling?
Betty
Sorta.
wants to know why she asked me that.
What's that?
She asked me about your tooth, Betty.
Oh, my tooth?
Yeah, Betty wants to know.
Oh. That was a combination of dentist.
She said we're missing the same one, so she thought we gave a tooth an eye for eye.
Oh. Yeah. I kept going to different dentists, and each dentist kept saying the dentist before him that did that didn't do it right. So after about $4,000 on a tooth, you just
Let it go.
you let it go. So, anyways. Verse 28, and when an ox gores a man or a woman to death, then the ox shall certainly be stoned, and its flesh is not eaten, and the owner of the ox is innocent. So, so now we're going to include animals. However, if the ox was previously in the habit of goring and its owner had been warned and he has not kept it confined so that it has killed a man or woman, the ox is stoned and the owner is also put to death.
Yeah,
So,
I was gonna say,
responsible for your animals, including pets.
Yeah.
so that applies to vicious dogs too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So if you buy a
dog-
vicious dog and attack somebody, guess what?
You bet.
That happened to our granddaughter when she was 6 years old. The dog knocked her over and bit her on the cheek.
Is that right?
And man, thank God it wasn't too close to her eye. But those people did, they
Huh.
did pay. They did have to pay, and I think the dog was put down.
Yeah.
I
If a
wanted to
sin
say
covering is laid upon him, then he shall give the ransom of his life, whatever is laid on him. Whether it is gored a son or gored a daughter, according to the right ruling, it is done to him. Okay. So the owner is liable for things. If the ox gores a male or female servant, he is to give their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox is stoned.
Now, you can stone a man, but how do you stone an ox? That's a big healthy animal.
I don't know how they did it.
You
You got any ideas, Wes?
don't stone them, you boulder them.
I watched on the Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if there's this Discovery Channel history once where they had a guy that was an expert with slingshot, like King David would have.
Yeah.
They showed that splits a skull open quicker than
Really?
the way they had it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like a protest projectile.
And the right stone, it would have split. I don't care how hard it is. They showed, they did all the amount of pressure, the force that when it would hit something, what it would do. And they showed how slingshots were deadly weapons back in that day. Okay.
Mhm.
So,
Did you read 32 yet?
yes.
Read it again, then can I say something?
If the ox, verse 32, if the ox gores a male or female servant, he is to give their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox is stoned. Okay.
So, first of all, I want to say that in Hebrew, there's no word that means exclusively slave, the way we think of slave. There's eved, which is more like it could be a worker also, there's
A hired hand.
other, So there's no word that exclusively means what we think of as the horrible slavery we had in this country.
There's servants.
But they're more like servants that you pay their housing and everything is included.
Indentured, they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this part where they have to, if the ox kills a slave, the owner has to pay. Does yours say 30 shekels of silver?
Yes.
Yeah. So of course that makes you think of Yeshua, right? So here's the profound thing. Yeshua said he came not to be served, but to serve. He emptied himself, taking the form of a slave, it says in Philippians. He proved this in many ways, but the final way was that he was betrayed for exactly the same price of a slave. The same retribution was paid, quote unquote, actually paid back, but paid for his death as for the death of a slave required in the Torah. The silver was paid back into the temple. It is as if Judas, representing mankind, was paying God the restitution required so that even this detail in Torah would be fulfilled. The quote-unquote beast that did the killing, the devil, was known to kill and destroy many times before. Keep this in mind, though, that Yeshua was a slave to his father, not the people. He did not obey what people told him to do. But anyway, I thought that was really awesome, how every detail of the Torah is filled. He was, and the other thing about the price of the slave being 30 shekels, there's nowhere, we don't know what free people would have been cost to be redeemed. So it's not saying that slaves, we don't know that their value was valued any less than a free person.
Right.
Because it's not given. So, but anyway, the temple got paid for the killing of Yeshua, killed by the beast, the devil.
Good point.
Hmm.
Okay, when a man opens a pit, or if a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or donkey falls in it, the owner of the pit is to repay. He is to give silver to their owner, and the dead beast is his. And when the ox of a man smites the ox of his neighbor, and it dies, then there shall sell the live ox and divide the silver from it, and also divide the dead ox. Or, if it was known that the ox was previously in the habit of goring, and its owner has not kept it confined, he shall certainly repay ox for ox, while the dead beast is his. So you have man, you have animals, animals against animals, animal against man. So these are some of the civil laws. All right. The other thing is, we have to remember, this is agricultural society. It isn't like today. You know, back then, most everybody was in agriculture.
Yeah.
And today, it's not that way. But still, I mean, the spiritual principles always apply to our situations. So, if you have a dog and it bites somebody, bye-bye dog and pay the bill.
We won't need Judge Judy for that.
So,
Okay, so now agriculture. What about the hunters? It was hunter-gatherers, okay. What about the hunters? They went out in the wilderness, out in the woods or out somewhere. And they were taking, non-domesticated animals.
right,
And they taking them for food?
right. They took them for food. But they had to be kosher, too.
You had to be covered, yeah, that's true, okay.
So, they,
But, some of them wild animals, I mean, they just killed a guy before he got a chance to kill them,
right.
so. But there's no ownership involved.
Well, there is a place where it says if they find a dead person, nobody knows how it got killed. Then there's a whole ceremony to cleanse the land there.
Yes.
The
does.
villages nearby have to come, the leaders
Yes.
have to come
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah.
cleanse the land. So I suppose that would be if killed by a beast too.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Okay, chapter
That's a
22.
Good question.
When a man steals an ox or a sheep and shall slaughter it or sell it, he repays 5 cattle for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep.
He pays
Okay.
what? 5?
Or sell it, he repays 5 cattle for an ox
Oh,
and 4 sheep for a sheep. If the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there is no guilt for his bloodshed. There you go.
Ooh, breaking and entering.
Yeah, breaking and entering.
oh, you skipped some, that's why.
Why did I skip some?
He's on
Mine says if he breaks in at night, but if he does it after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed.
Verse 2, if the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there is no guilt for his bloodshed. Verse 3, if the sun has risen on him, there is guilt for his bloodshed. He shall certainly repay. If he has not the means, then shall be sold for his theft.
So yours doesn't say anything about if he's unable to pay restitution for the animal that he has to be sold. I guess mine jumps around. They
No,
moved mine.
37 and verse
That's
1,
verse 4. Okay,
they
yeah.
are off a little bit.
I'm not too
Yeah.
far. I'm not to
I
the
know,
stuff
well,
yet.
mine mixes them up. I never noticed that before. It puts
37.
4 before 2 and 3. Okay, sorry.
Verse 4, if the theft is indeed found alive in his hand, whether it is an ox or donkey or sheep, he repays double. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
When a man lets a field or vineyard be grazed bare and lets loose his livestock and it feeds on another man's field, he repays from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. This is all about negligence. Okay.
Yeah.
It's always
so
about
weird.
being negligent.
So in other words, you can't kill a thief if it's in daylight. You're not gonna be considered
If you kill them.
guiltless. You're gonna be, if it's in the dark, you're not guilty, but if it's in daylight,
That's because you can't see them at night. Now
I
they have
know,
night
so you can-
glasses.
yeah, but what are you supposed to do to defend yourself? I thought that would be called self-defense. Well, I guess if they have a weapon, then it's self-defense. That's interesting that.
Yeah, so you have to have a witness to say it was him. And if nobody can see him at night, you can't say it was a witness. So when the daylight, everybody can see who it is. So
Oh, it just says coming into your house,
Yeah.
breaking into your house.
right, you
Nobody
can see
else
who he
is.
is. You see him coming.
Yeah, but
So then what do you do?
a good thief
can't fight
doesn't
him.
have any witnesses available around.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Maybe they're thinking it wouldn't be a thief in the daytime, because what thief would come in the daytime? Is that what they're thinking? What God is meaning to me?
He's only borrowing it.
Yeah.
When a fire, verse 6, when fire breaks out and spreads through thorn bushes, so that stacked grain or standing grain or the field is consumed, he who kindled the fire shall certainly repay. When a man gives silver or goods to his neighbor to guard, and it is stolen out of the man's house, if the thief is found, he repays double. If the thief is not found, then the master of the house shall be brought before Elohim to see whether he has put his hands into the neighbor's goods. For every matter of transgression, for ox, for donkey, for sheep, for garment, or for whatever is lost, with another claims to be his, let the matter then both come before Elohim. And whoever Elohim declares wrong pays double to his neighbor.
That sounds good, except that if a thief has nothing and he's stealing to get along, how does he pay double? He didn't have anything to begin with.
I don't know.
That's what it says up here in verse, well, I don't know if it's I don't know where this came from, because I don't think you read it in verse 1, the end of verse 1, the thief shall make restitution, but if unable to do so, he shall be sold for the theft. Does your Bible say that, the end of verse 1? Did they?
When a man
did they
steals-
add that in, did they?
When a man steals an ox or a sheep and shall slaughter it or sell it, he repays 5 cattle for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep.
So in some Bibles, that's verse 37. Other Bibles, it's chapter 22, verse 1.
37?
Okay.
Oh, he shall certainly repay
Where's the-
ox for ox while the dead beast is his. So I don't know.
What does it say? Oh yeah, it says chapter 21, 37 in Hebrew. Oh, yeah, you gotta look up the last chapter. That's where you gotta look.
Mhm.
What does it say up there?
It's verse 37.
I just said.
We don't have a 37.
I don't have a 37. Or if it was known that the ox was previous in the habit of goring,
Mhm.
and it's shown, and its owner has not kept it confined, he shall certainly pay ox for ox while the dead beast is his.
And 37 would read like, well, how's it
It'll
turn?
be 22 1.
So-
No, it's
Yeah,
not.
it doesn't say
Why is it
anything.
22?
Where did it
No.
come from? That's weird.
How does
Anyways.
37 read in your book?
I have 3 of them.
They have a 21, 37?
It says 31 in parentheses 22, verse 1.
That's what it says
This
in
one
mine. It
says-
says in the Hebrew text, 22:1 is number 21:37.
21, 37, that's what it says on the side.
But does yours say, does it say that if he can't pay, he's sold?
Yeah, that's what mine
Yours
says.
says? So I wonder wonder where they got it.
Because anyone
'Cause
who
it's not in the
steals
King
must make
James.
restitution. If they have nothing, they must be sold to pay for their theft.
Oh, yeah, it's here in the King James. If you have nothing, in the end of verse 3, it says it. Does it say it in your end of verse 3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then he shall be sold for his theft.
There you go.
I'm down in
Okay,
verse 3.
Okay,
Verse
all right, all right, all right.
three,
That's what they put.
So that's where they put it in ours.
Okay. Yeah,
The
that's
correct
where
one
the
is in
King
verse
James
3.
too.
Okay.
Alright, yes, the correct one is verse 3.
All right, moving on. Verse 10. When a man gives his neighbor a donkey or an ox or sheep or any beast to watch over and it dies or is injured or is driven away while no one is looking, that an oath of Adonai be between them both, that he has put his hand into his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept that and does not repay. So
That he
whatever
has
they
not-
come up
you
with,
mean that he has not put his hand in
right?
his neighbor's good.
Not. But if it is indeed stolen from him, he repays to its owner. If it is torn to pieces, then let him bring it for evidence. He does not repay what was torn. Verse 14, when a man borrows from his neighbor and is injured or dies while the owner of it is not present, he shall certainly repay. But if its owner was with it, it does not repay. If it was hired, he is entitled to the hire. 16, when a man entices a maiden who is not engaged and lies with her, he shall certainly pay the bride price for her to be his wife. Okay. Nope. Nobody gets away with nothing here. All right. You have to understand that. He has to pay the dowry. If his father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he pays according to the bride price of maidens. Do not allow, okay. So that if you read the story of Hosea, basically, that'll explain those two verses.
Mhm.
Verse
Other places, rape is punishable by death. I don't know why it's
Right.
not here. If she's a virgin. And hopefully the father would ask her. I would think it'd be horrible to be given as a wife to the person who raped you. To me, that sounds very horrible.
Verse 18. Do not allow a practicer of witchcraft to live. Okay. So how serious does God take witchcraft? Very serious. Verse 19. Anyone lying with a beast shall certainly be put to death. He who slaughters to a different god or to an Elohim, lower E, except to Adonai only, is put under the ban. Do not tread down a soldier or oppress him, for you were soldiers in the land of Egypt. Okay.
Sojourner, right? Not a
So-
soldier.
Sojourner, yes. Do not tread down a sojourner or oppress him, for you were a sojourner in the land of Egypt. And what does the New Testament say? Stranger.
Yeah.
He could be an angel.
Yes.
So, verse 22, do not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you do afflict them at all, if they cry out to me at all, I shall certainly hear their cry. And my wrath shall burn, and I shall kill you with a sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. All right, so God takes the widows and the fatherless very seriously. Those are two types of people you don't want to mess with. All right. Okay, they're to treat with the utmost.
Amen.
If you do not lend silver to any of my people, the poor among you, you are not to be like one that lends. Oh, I read that wrong. If you do lend silver to any of my people, the poor among you, you do not be like the ones that lends on interest to him. Do not lay interest on him. So all this loans at interest is not scriptural
To
to the poor, to the believer.
And to the poor.
Yeah.
They jack it higher when you have bad credit.
Yeah.
Charge more.
Yeah, I know. Just the opposite.
Mhm.
Okay. When you read through all these laws, you got to figure out the spiritual principle behind it. That's the thing. So listen, all the poor, all the widows, all the fatherless, these are people that need help. You don't take advantage of people that need help. That's the point. Okay? You don't take advantage of people that need help. All right, verse 26. If you take your neighbor's garment as a pledge at all, you are returned to him before the sun goes down. For that is his only covering. It is his garment for his skin. What does he sleep in? And it shall be that when he cries to me, I shall hear, for I show favor. Okay? Do not revile an Elohim, nor curse a ruler of your people. Do not delay giving your harvest and your vintage. Okay, so these people that hold back the grain to get more money for it, that's not of God. If people are hungry, they need the grain. Give me the firstborn of your sons. Likewise, you are to do with your oxen, with your sheep. It is to be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day, you give it to me. And when is circumcision done?
8th day.
The 8th day.
I got a note in here, 29.
Yes,
It says, give me the firstborn of your sons to be priests.
right.
What if the firstborn doesn't want to be a priest?
I don't know.
I
Well,
was thinking
they were, there's other provision for redeeming your firstborn son. You just pay for him. They didn't, there's other things
there's
about the
nothing? Okay.
firstborn. So you're to give it to the Lord, but then you can just pay and keep your son.
It didn't work out with Esau.
No, it didn't work out with Esau. Verse 31, and you are holy men to me, and you do not eat any meat which is torn to pieces in the field. You throw it to the dogs. Okay. So you're not scavengers, in other words.
So when it says give the firstborn, it's main that you had to give the Lord the firstborn of your animals. But for
Right.
your firstborn son, you paid money to redeem him back to yourself. And about the slaves, one more thing that's not going to be in this reading, it's in Deuteronomy 23, that really shows how different God had it ordained. If a slave escapes his master, you are not to take him back to his master. You're supposed to let him be free and let him live wherever he wants to live in the country, in the nation. Wherever he likes best, and you will not oppress him. So if a slave who escaped was to be treated like a free citizen and allowed to buy land and everything. That's the thing that would have been awesome, made it a lot better. Still was wrong, I think, to have slaves, but what we did to keep slaves to escape was horrible, what this country did.
You know, it wasn't what the Bible was about.
It was
so.
not biblical. It definitely was not biblical.
Do not, okay, chapter 23. Do not bring a false report. Do not put your hand with the wrong to be a malicious witness. Okay, very important verse here. Do not follow a crowd to do evil. Okay, so when things are really popular, stop and think about it. Is it really God? Things that are really popular today, is it God? Chances are it's not.
Broad is the road to destruction.
Right.
Yeah.
Nor bear witness in a strife so as to turn aside after many. To turn aside what is right.
That's so Yeshua was referring to this law when he said, broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be that find it.
Exactly. And do not favor a poor man in his strife. When you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey go astray, you shall certainly return it to him. When you see the donkey of him who hates you lying under its burden, you shall refrain from leaving it to him. You shall certainly help him.
You shall not refrain.
Yeah, you shall refrain from leaving it to him.
Oh, I see.
You shall certainly help him. Do not turn aside the right rulings of your poor in his strife. Keep yourself far from false matter, and do not kill the innocent and the righteous, for I do not declare the wrong right. And do not take...
kill the innocent.
Yeah.
Babies are innocent.
Right. For I do not declare the wrong right. What's going on nowadays? Everything that's wrong is right, and everything that's right is wrong.
Mine says, for I will not acquit the guilty.
Mhm.
Verse 8, and do not take a bribe, for bribe blinds the seeing one, and twists the words of the righteous. Okay, bribes.
And isn't that all what do they call it in government when you, the word doesn't come to my mind, but
What do they call it?
lobbying and all that.
All the lobbyists?
Oh,
It's kind of like bribing, isn't it?
Mm.
The lobbyists.
Trying to get their way.
twist the words, propaganda.
Yeah. And do not oppress a sojourner as yourselves know the heart of a sojourner, because you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. And for 6 years you are to sow your land and shall gather its increase. But the 7th year, or the Shemitah year, you are to let it rest and shall leave it. And the poor of your people shall eat. And what they leave, the beasts of the field eat. Do the same with your vineyards and your olive yards. Okay. 6 days you are to do work, and on the 7th day you rest, in order that your ox and your donkey might rest, and the sons of your female servant and the sojourner be refreshed. So, a Sabbath truth equals a physical outcome. Everybody gets to rest, including the animals, including the land.
My mom used to think, since we don't have animals and slaves, that it meant our machinery.
Is that right?
Only cars, all that.
Yeah, like the washing machine and everything should rest.
Don't start the tractor.
Verse 13, and in all that I have said to you, take heed. Okay? Guard. And make no mention of the name of other mighty ones. Let it not be heard from your mouth. That's very serious.
Mhm.
Okay? You're not even supposed to mention the name
Mhm.
of other religions, actually,
Exactly. And other gods.
and other gods.
So that's why I don't like these people that look in, because in other places it says not to even inquire what they did and all that. And then there's people that delve into what they did thousands of years ago
Yeah.
at Christmas time or whatever, and they dig all that stuff up. And if they would just leave it alone, nobody would know about it. We're not supposed to mention it. We're not supposed to bring it up and tell people about it.
Yeah. You just keep promoting it.
Yeah,
And
you
I wish I
can't
would have never heard that stuff. I could have lived the rest of my life without hearing that
Can't
stuff.
support
Mm.
or conform to it. Okay, verse 14. 3 times in the year you are to celebrate a festival to me. Guard the festival of Matzah. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you at the time appointed in the new moon of Abib. For in it you came out of Egypt, and do not appear before me empty-handed. In the festival of the harvest, Pentecost, the first fruits of your labor which you have sown in your field, in the festival of ingathering at the outgoing of the year, when you have gathered in the fruit of your labors in the field. That would be the time of tabernacles. 3 times in the year, all your males are to appear before the master Yahweh or Adonai. So the males, all right? Again,
Any age?
any age.
Wow.
Well, male, the adults, 20 years and up.
20 years. Oh, okay.
Okay, they're considered adults at age 20.
Probably if you look at the Hebrew word, it would mean the.
So the 13-year-olds, what,
Yeah, they've been bar mitzvahed.
Bar mitzvah?
They're kind of in a transition period.
Okay. All right. They're leaving mama and
They're leaving mama and
and going with the guys.
go with the guys,
And
and
the guys are gonna.
they can't. There's the things they can't do yet. They can't go to war.
Yeah.
And they and stuff like that. You know, they're not responsible yet.
Let me see what word it uses. Kol Zakar, Zakar, Zakur. Let's see if that's meaning adults, probably.
So, do
Young
they refer to 21-year-olds as coming of age? No,
20 and on up.
20 and on up. Yes.
20-year-olds could go to war, and they're kind of held accountable. 30 years old is when they started its priesthood. They had to be 30 to be a full-fledged priest to do the act. Okay,
Wow.
to do the act. And probably from 20 to 30, they were trained.
Yeah.
So they had a good mentorship, or they had a good apprentice program back then.
There's all these steps in life.
All these steps in life. Okay. Verse 18, do not slaughter the blood of my slaughterings with leavened bread, and the fat of my festival shall not remain until morning. Bring the first of the first fruits of your land into the house of Adonai, your Elohim. Okay. Okay. This is a very controversial scripture. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. Okay. Verse 20. See, I'm sending a messenger before you to guard you on the way. It's supposed to be on the way there, not in the way. And to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Okay, we know who this is talking about, right? Be on guard before him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him. Okay, he's talking about Yeshua.
Okay.
He is not going to pardon your transgressions. Okay. For my name is in him.
Mhm.
All right. He is our keeper. But if you diligently obey his voice and shall do all that I speak, then I shall be an enemy to your enemies and a distresser to those who distress you. So my name is in his name. Okay, they have the same character. Me and my Father are one. Okay, so it's talking about his character. Should be dependent on him.
And where it says, what did yours say? Listen to his voice, it's Shema. Listen with
Yeah.
the intent to obey.
Hear, O Israel. Verse 23, for my messenger shall go before you and shall bring you into the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I shall cut them off. Okay, there's 6 names there. 6 stands for grace. And don't you think God knows all your enemies? God knows all our enemies today. Okay, whether they're in DC, whether they're in Juneau, whether they're in a local, or whether in a foreign country, or whoever they are, God knows our enemies. Do not bow down to their mighty ones, nor serve them, nor do according to their works. but without fail overthrow them, and without fail break down their pillars. Okay, there's a distinction between us and them in how we worship and how God wants us to worship.
And they're supposed to destroy all their
Right.
paraphernalia.
Okay, there is a big distinction between us and the world in how we worship and how, okay, we don't take part in their ceremonial worships. Okay, and you without fail break down their pillars. Okay, so a lot of times when they went in, and they captured these kings, there was gold, and they had expensive stuff. They had expensive gods, pillars and statues and stuff, and they were supposed to break them down. So life is not about just keep getting more. How much is enough, right? Somebody asked, what's his name? Billionaire years ago, Rockefeller, how much is enough? How much is enough? You know what he said? Always just a little bit more. There's nothing wrong with having money and things, but it's how you use them.
Remember, you can't take it with you.
There's nothing wrong with having money, but it's what you use it for.
Right.
Okay. Verse 27, I shall send my fear before you and cause confusion among all the people to whom you come, and make all your enemies turn their backs to you. Okay, noise. Confusion. And I shall send hornets before you, which shall drive out the Hittites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites from before you. So he names three there. So three is the thing. Number three is revelation. God is going to do the fighting. I shall not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land becomes a waste and the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. That's a weird statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we said it before, didn't we? A few weeks ago.
I think so.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I shall not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land becomes a waste and the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. Little by little, I shall drive them out from before you until you have increased and you inherit the land. And I shall set your border from the sea of the reeds to the sea of the Philistines, and from the wilderness to the river. For I shall give the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. Okay. That is going to be the land when Yeshua returns of Israel. They've never had all the land they're supposed to get. Never.
So they gotta have all of it.
They're going to have all of it. It goes from the Nile River all the way over to the Euphrates River, all the way up.
Yeah.
It takes all of Syria, all of Jordan. It takes parts of Iraq. It takes a lot of land. Lebanon. What God was giving them. They will have it one day. Do not make a covenant with them, nor with their mighty ones. Okay, you can't make a pact with the devil. Sorry, it doesn't work. Let them not dwell in the land, lest they make you sin against me when you serve their mighty ones, when it becomes a snare to you. And what happened? Exactly what happened, right?
Exactly. And now what's happening today?
What's happening today?
The schools are even promoting some
Transgender and all that
religions.
stuff.
I mean,
Well, today,
Oh, yeah.
Today, the pastors who were preaching against homosexuality all that stuff are being kicked off all the websites. They're going after each pastor, shutting them down. Spotify, they spoke all over the country.
Yeah, it's really getting bad here.
Because he said that a female is an X, and a male is an X and a Y. And he said that's the way it is. That's the facts.
Yeah.
And he was just saying, he wasn't judging anybody. He was just telling you
The
what it
fact.
is. So
Yeah.
he said there's no such thing as transgender.
Right.
And so because he made that statement, they took him off. Just
Yeah.
Today, they were announcing it today.
Hmm.
Pastor.
Lord help us.
Well, we're just going to pray when I preach against homosexuality that they can't take it off.
Call it what it is, sodomy.
Yep.
And that can be anybody. Just men.
Okay, we're on chapter 24, last chapter, 18 more verses. Okay, I love this chapter. And to Moshe he said, come up to Adonai, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and you shall bow yourselves from a distance. But Moshe draw near to Adonai by himself, and let them not draw near, nor let the people go up with him. And Moshe came and related to the people all the words of Adonai and all the right rulings. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Adonai has spoken, we shall do.
Hmm.
Okay? They've always said that. And Moshe wrote down all the words of Adonai and rose up early in the morning and built a slaughter place at the foot of the mountain and 12 standing columns for 12 tribes of Israel. And he set young men of the children of Israel, and he offered ascending offerings and slaughters of peace offerings to Adonai of bulls. So they weren't even priests. These are young men from the tribes of Israel. All right.
I got elders. Elders would be older than no.
And he's verse 5, and he sent young men of the children of Israel.
Okay.
I got that in verse 5.
Right.
Yeah.
But the elders are watching.
Yes. Well, of
Did
course.
you say elders there?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
And Moshe took half of the blood and put it in the basin, and half of the blood and is sprinkled on the slaughter place. And he took the book of the covenant
Because he said.
and read in the hearing of the people, and they said, all that Adonai has spoken, we shall do and obey. So it already took a book of the covenant.
Yeah, because in verse 4, he wrote all those words
Right.
down. So this is the book he just wrote down. It probably was a scroll, right?
Right. It was a scroll. It's already got the 10 commandments in it.
Well, it's got all that he just.
Right,
not just
right. I
told,
agree.
Way more than 10 commandments.
Right. I know, but it has that included in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I remember, if you remember when we were in Israel, that professor there, he thought they didn't have written language back in this time, that they didn't have written language. Well, right here, he wrote it. He wrote it down and then he read it to them.
I know. I think in order to be
There's some history. Some history people think they didn't have a written language yet. At
I
that
know,
time, but they
to
did.
be a professor in some of these modern universities
Yeah.
with a doctorate degree, you can't not read the Bible.
Yeah.
You read something else, but not the Bible.
Yeah.
And if you do read it, the Bible can't be true because you're right.
Yeah. Something strange.
Something strange. Just it don't make sense. But anyways. Okay. And Moshe took, verse 8, the blood and sprinkled it on the people. And said, see the blood of the covenant which Adonai has made with you concerning all these words. So you know how we plead the blood of Yeshua over us? Where do you think they got that from? They actually sprinkled the blood on the people. Okay? So there has to be blood. There has to be an atonement for sin. Okay? That's a spiritual principle. In blood, God uses blood.
And this says the blood, behold the blood of the covenant. And what did Yeshua say? This is the
Blood of the covenant.
Yeah, the blood of my covenant, does he say?
He says this is the blood of the covenant.
Does it just say covenant or new?
Well, look it up.
Yeah, let's look it up.
And Moshe went up. Verse 9. Also Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and the 70 of the elders of Israel. And this is cool, okay? This next verse. And they saw the Elohim of Israel. So all the elders saw him. Aaron and his 2 sons that were priests saw him. And the 70 elders saw
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
the
It's
Elohim
not
of
just his feet
Israel,
that
and
were
under
hard.
his feet like a paid work of sapphire stone, and like the heavens for brightness. So wasn't the 10 Commandments made out of those sapphire stones?
Well, that's what,
Okay, so
because of this verse, that's why they think possibly it was because God carved the first stones out
Right.
of the mountain. And if that's what it looked like under his feet, then they think that the 10
And where did the
Commandments are
phrase
made
come
out of this
from?
blue and sapphire stone.
Right. And Yeshua's the chief cornerstone. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're supposed to stand on the word of the Lord, right? And so we're standing
Oh,
on the stone. And so
sapphire.
that's why
Oh, that's awesome.
they looked on his feet.
So is that all they saw was the feet? Was God's feet?
I don't think so. And they saw the Elohim of Israel, comma. And under his feet like paid work of sapphire stone, comma. And like the heavens for brightness.
Are they referring to Yeshua here? Or?
I believe so.
Okay, because way back in the beginning, you couldn't see God.
Right.
You had to turn your back.
Right.
Okay.
Right. When Moses, yeah.
Yeah,
No man shall live.
right.
So-
So it's got to be Yeshua.
Yes. I believe it's Yeshua. Because he is the God of Israel.
Yeah, right. That's true.
So yet he did not stretch out his hand against the chiefs of the children of Israel, and they saw Elohim, and they ate and they drank. So they saw, and they actually had Shabbat meal with him. Isn't that great?
Yeah. Oh, I never thought about it as Shabbat, probably. Wow.
So they also had dinner with the Lord. Okay. And they ate and drank. And so how important is that? Breaking bread and wine. And what did Yeshua say? As often as you do this, remember me. Okay. So we should do it often. I mean, verse 12, and Adonai said to Moshe, come up to me on the mountain and be there while I give you tablets of stone in the Torah and the command which I have written to teach them. So he's going to give them tablets now.
Yes.
All right. And Moshe arose with his assistant, Joshua or Yehoshua, and Moshe went up to the mountain of Elohim. And he said to the elders, wait here for us until we come back to you. And see, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has matters, let him go to them. And Moshe went up into the mountain, and a cloud covered the mountain, and the esteem of Adonai, or the glory of Adonai, dwelt on the Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. Okay? And on the 7th day, he called to Moshe on the midst of the cloud. Okay, so Moses, he goes up there, and 6 days he has to wait there. He has to wait till the 7th day, or Shabbat. Okay, so on Shabbat, on the 7th day, on Shabbat, God is going to give him the Torah.
Oh, so that would make me.
Yeah, but he didn't have 6 days of work.
I know, but he's still 6 days. I mean, so that's why it's so important to read the scriptures on the 7th day. Okay, it's so important. God has a plan, and that's why we spend all day with God on the mountain on the 7th day.
But I bet he was not doing nothing those 6 days.
Yeah,
What he was praying? Maybe was he
No.
rereading the Torah scroll?
Was he praying, worshiping God? And
Or was he twiddling his thumbs like, when?
soaking in the dewdrops in the clouds.
Okay, and the appearance of the glory of God was like a consuming fire on top of the mountain before the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moshe went into the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain. And it came to be that Moshe was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights.
Mm.
So worship is a serious business. I think sometimes we take worship too lightly. It's very serious. So
It's like devouring fire on top of the mountain. That would have been pretty, like a volcano almost.
and I was on the airplane because I was reading in Chronicles in how, do you know, in the temple they had singing and worship going 24/7.
Yeah. David
There was
set it up.
shofar. David set it up in Chronicles. They were blowing the shofar. They had tambourines. They had worship going 24/7 in the temple.
But it was,
24/7.
yeah, but it wasn't a large crowd doing it. It was just like,
It was the Levites.
It was the Levites, all the priests. There were
He
certain
assigned
priests that just sang,
ones. Yeah.
just saying, okay.
and certain priests that played worship instruments.
But it wasn't like a 50-member choir. They're probably like 2 or 3 singing. One
Oh
woman
no, it
singing.
could have been. It could have been at least that.
Is it at least that?
Yeah, because the Levites were huge. They're a huge population.
Yeah, but how-
Certain Levites were tasked for this. Certain group of families were tasked for this. It says in Chronicles.
Yeah.
And so they came in and sang for 8 hours. They had an 8-hour shift. And I'm just saying, I'm just picking a number.
Okay, yeah.
But they had a shift, and they could have had like, because there were several thousands of each family.
How could you hear with the
The worship,
worship?
I don't know where they stood to sing, but I would imagine they stood near the altar where they did sacrifices, or where the outer courts were. I would imagine they would have sung.
They have pictures in that one book we had, that red book,
Yeah, they have pictures.
paintings of what they think. How
And
think
where
it
was I reading?
Could we read what Yeshua said in Matthew?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got them all here.
Matthew
Did you
chapter
already look
5,
them?
verse 38.
Oh, I thought you meant-
42.
Oh, no, what are you, that's different what I got. I've got about the blood of the covenant. What are you
Oh,
got?
also on truth and truth.
Oh,
I.
oh, yeah, read it.
Matthew 5:38.
Matthew 5:38 through 42. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, offer no resistance to the one who is evil. When someone strikes you on your right cheek, turn the other one to him as well. If anyone wants to go to the law with you over your tunic, hand it over your cloak as well. Should anyone press you into service for 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn your back on the one who wants to borrow.
Yeah, Yeshua's commandments are always harder than the ones in the Torah. So do you want to hear about the blood of the covenant? Anybody says?
Yeah.
So in Matthew, it's Matthew 26, verse 27. He took
Matthew
a
what?
cup.
Which
Matthew
chapter?
26, chapter 26.
Right.
And it's verse 27, 28. 28 is actually where he is, but 27 it says he took the cup. So he's talking about a cup. 28 it says, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. What did yours say?
Oh, I'm not there. I'm looking up the Chronicles here.
Yeah, it's just the same thing.
Says the same thing.
Yeah.
This is my blood of the covenant, which
Shed.
will be shed for you. On behalf
Oh.
of
It
you
just says poured out, but it's
Yeah.
shed. That's
Yeah.
the word in ours
for
is shed.
forgiveness of sins.
Said, yeah.
Same thing.
And then in Mark 14, there's verse 24. Mark 14, verse 24, he said, this is my blood of the covenant, And they got a note. They had a note in the other one too. Eight other authorities add new covenant. So probably the King James has new covenant in there, which is probably we agree with the Texas receptus
Yeah.
is what the King James
Is what the King
on.
James is.
So he probably did say new covenant. And then in Luke, it's Luke chapter 22 and verse 20. He did the same with the cup after supper, saying, "This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood." That's how it says here, and they got a note for that too. Let's see. Other ancient authorities. Which is given, I don't know. New covenant. So he does say it's the blood of the covenant.
Yeah.
My blood of the covenant.
Right.
So that's what it's just a continuation of that blood of the covenant we just read about.
Right. It's a continuation. Okay.
It's a new covenant because it no longer needs to be animal blood. It's his blood.
Right.
That's what's new.
That's what's new. Exactly.
And our sins are forgiven for all time.
Right. So, to go back to what we were talking about, worship all the time. So in Chronicles 16, it says, "So they left Asaph and his brothers there before the ark of the covenant of Adonai to perform regular services before the ark as each day required. Also, Obed-Edom with his 68 brothers included Obed-Edom, son of Jeduthun, and Hosea to be gatekeepers." So there's 68, because that would be 69 brothers, and their sons are gatekeepers. Okay? So 69 men with their sons are the gatekeepers. They're just the gatekeepers. So they all took shifts. And then it says, "And Zadok the priest and his brothers the priests before the dwelling place of Adonai at the high places that was at Gibeon, to offer ascending offerings to Adonai on the slaughter place of ascending offerings, regular morning and evening, and do according to all that was written in the Torah of Adonai, which he commanded Israel. And with them Heman and Jeduthun and the rest who were chosen, who were designated by name to give thanks to Adonai, because his loving commitment is everlasting. And with them Heman and Jeduthun to sound aloud the trumpets and the cymbals and the instruments for songs of Elohim, and the sons of Jeduthun for the gate. And all the people went each way to this house." So you had two families here of Levites that were in charge of the singing and the playing of instruments. Two families. So, and these were the leaders. So, I mean, their families were like, it could have been in the thousands. And so they all took shifts.
That's because not everybody can sing.
Correct. Not everybody can sing.
And what chapter was that one?
That's in Chronicles 16.
I thought it said somewhere else that he chose people that were good at singing.
Well, he did. There's other places too.
Oh, it tells it back here, the singers, Herman, Asaph, and Ethan. I'm in chapter 15, verse 19.
And the
So,
singers,
it's
Heman,
somewhere else it
Asaph,
said
and
those-
Ethan, were to sound the cymbals of bronze.
Somewhere else it said those who were skillful in singing.
Okay, and then he lists a bunch of other names in 20 for harps. So, and then he lists a bunch of other names for lyres. So you had a lot of men that were skilled in singing and playing instruments. And in verse 22, Kenahayu, leader of the Levites, in the songs, instructed in the songs because he was skilled.
Yeah.
So he had a tenor voice like me. La 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 la. Oh, I'm still live. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We will see you tomorrow night. We have Matthew, right? And
hopefully
then
he can
Friday
come.
night we do the dance. Tomorrow night is 4:30 for sign language, and then Friday night we have dance about 6:30, 6:30, and then
And after sign
4 o'clock
language-
Shabbat.
After sign language is Hebrew, beginning Hebrew
Okay.
class.
After sign language tomorrow night, there will be beginners Hebrew class. So, and we are
Lesson 3,
at
right? It's only the third one.
third lesson. Okay. So we're at 401, correct?
401 East.
401 East Spruce Ave in Wasilla. 401 East Spruce Ave in Wasilla.
And that's in Alaska.
Yes. In Alaska. Only in Alaska. All right. Blessings, everyone. We will see you later.
Shalom.
I got a question.
Okay.
Let's go back to chapter 23 in
Yeah, why do you cut it off? You're